Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot. Of course, a great big warm welcome to those of you who are joining for the first time. Always want to say that. So, today we're going to do a reading that asks a question that I've gotten it so many times in the last week. It's like the energy has gotten so thick, so intense. People just want to know how is your person feeling this? Like, are they feeling it as much as you are? Are they focused completely on other things? We know there's been a lot of attempt to focus on other things, but let's get a feel for how it's hitting them. And we looked in yesterday's extended at how the energy was hitting them, this particularly heavy energy. We'll take some of that into account because these are all connected readings. They're general readings. This will be a general reading. And it's for this collective, so it's not gonna resonate with everybody, and really, it shouldn't, because it's gonna be for the folks who particularly are part of this collective. If you feel like that's you, then by all means, maybe subscribe, take a look at some of the older videos and see if maybe they have some messages in there that you could also get some good from. So we're going to start here. We're going to look into, again, what we really want to know is the question that keeps coming out is, are they feeling this as much as you are? Okay. And we're going to look at that, but let's look at that energetic backdrop first to get a feel for like how we should be taking this. This is really the one, this is that energetic backdrop, gives us the context. So we've got the 10 of Wands, and oh, this is excellent. Okay. It doesn't matter which one of you this energy is heavier with. It's all good news. So this is, does have a little bit of a feeling of burnout, so I'll explain why it's good. I have mentioned in the past that there has been entirely too much taking responsibility and carrying the weight of things that really you don't control. They don't control. There's no real value in you carrying this weight, and yet sometimes it's really hard to set down. So I get the sense that you're starting to be able to determine the difference between what you should carry and what you shouldn't, and there's some setting down of things that you no longer control. That is going to lighten the load, lighten the being for both of you. Honestly, one of you doing this is going to benefit the other one as well. So that's part of why I think it doesn't matter who this is heavier in, because this is going to be energy that is shared between the two of you. You're both responding to this, but sometimes I'll get something being heavier in one side than the other. In this case, again, doesn't matter. This is weight being removed from the overall picture. There's a feeling of protection, but still the energy is unable to flow. So with the 7 of Wands, that's that sense of protection, that sense of a confidence, and we've seen that building in some of the previous readings. In some cases, it's your own self-trust that helps bring you to this, because now you've brought yourself through many things. You've taken the time to look down the mountain to see how far you've come. So instead of just looking up to see how far you still have to go, you've taken a moment to look down and you realize, okay, hold on, I'm up for this, but there's still this lack of emotional flow. This is a closed heart chakra. It is easily heavier in your person's energy, but look for blockages within yourself. Still, you may have a little bit of an issue with receiving love. We want to be able to give and receive love in equal measure. You may have a little bit of an issue with receiving love, but you may actually have been triggered with the experiences with your person into having a hard time giving it. So look for that in a couple of places. Look for it where you make new friends, and where you're maybe less reluctant to jump in, where some of it is just setting healthier boundaries, but some of it you're going to say, oh, I could have done X, Y, or Z. I probably just didn't want to get vulnerable. Look for that. So you've got this 2 of Wands that's coming out in the upright. This is traditionally for us, this has been talking about the impasse between the two of you. I think what I'm feeling here is a little bit of that, but even more a sense of crossroads and a sense of having to move. So the fact that this your person has been sitting in a crossroads for some time here, and like just planted themselves right in the middle of it, not even pretending like they were getting ready to walk one direction or another. And so now there's all of this energy of movement, and yet they are feeling like they have to move. They feel like they have to move. They're kind of being washed along with this Eight of Wands movement. But it's a blind move for them because of the lack of emotion. Emotion is what would help to provide some of the direction for them. And you can take that as a lesson for yourself. You may have some things to work on with emotion. They're not as big, but it may help you as far as helping to flow and allow for the direction as well, because this energy fits for you too. It's just maybe going to look a little bit different. Let me turn my Fitbit. I have my texts from my friends will show up on this Fitbit, and I'm just trying to picture how somebody's going to feel if like somebody's name shows up on YouTube. So I always try to keep it down there. Okay, so we have the Queen of Pentacles in reverse, along with the Four of Pentacles in reverse. Okay, the Four of Pentacles in reverse is the sense of being able to let something go. The Nine of Swords is about, and this is in the face of not feeling strong, not feeling like you have everything together. This is being able to make decisions with less information. We've talked about this. We've talked about this usually in the healing, the lessons portion of your reading. We have a lessons portion in every reading because that's what this collective is really here for, is the healing portion. And, you know, it's amazing. We talked about there was this feeling of not necessarily feeling that self-worth, being able to see the edges of it now. There is a feeling of not having everything together, and yet being able to go forward and make decisions anyway, having been able to release the concerns about the outcome, the attachments and expectations and assumptions about the situations, the outcomes, and to some degree the people, although that one's a little bit tougher for you in this energy. And for them, they're farther behind on this. But this is more what I'm feeling in you. The thing is, though, it's all echoing with them because you guys are impacting one another's energy. So when one of you feels this energy like you have to move forward, it does impact both of you. Okay, so but you also have this Nine of Swords in reverse here that's saying you've got a lot more it's calm where there used to be some anxiety. And so whereas you still have some self-doubts, we saw that Seven of Pentacles there in reverse, even though we still have some self-doubts as time goes by, there's an ability to sort of move through that. And with this confidence, this is a better day. This is a better day than some of the ones we've been seeing. There's a sense of a needing to make a decision and wanting to maintain balance, and those two things working against each other. It is no mistake that the Two of Swords and the Two of Pentacles came out opposite one another and in this configuration. So the Two of Swords comes out in reverse to say that the decision itself is particularly challenging. So it's one that they put this blindfold on themselves because it makes it feel like they have less responsibility. And yet when they come over here and really start evaluating what is their responsibility, they realize, oh, I've got a responsibility for doing something here, and yet I mostly just want to ensure that I'm holding on to this balance. So that is, it's not necessarily an easy way for them to be, but there's some of that's going to be in your energy too, so just look for that. You also have the Judgment card, though. This is you looking for that. Really, really, what this is internal reconciliation. This is something that's required before you would be able to get to that external reconciliation piece. The external reconciliation is the reconciliation that happens between the two of you, and some degree of both internal and external reconciliation has to occur before you're able to have a successful reunion. So even coming back together, which some of you have in some form or another, some of you just had a couple of lines of communication, but you know, anything that's like that, it's not going to be at its best until that healing is done. And we've seen that the healing still needs to take place. But this is a recognition of that. So it's like you guys are adults and you're figuring that out. There's not a sense that you don't get it. Okay. Okay. We want all of these. We want all of these. So, all right. There is definitely a sense of hiding in something right now. So whether it is third party energy like a job or something around a family or a person or hanging out with a set of friends, or it could be a whole social situation, you know. There's a sense of wanting, and this could be you too, wanting to get lost in that so as not to have to deal with all of this situation, even though you feel like this mounting level of security and ability about it. There's also this sense of, but I'm still tired and I don't really feel like dealing with it. There's so much mystery around it. There's so much control that you feel like you would want to exert on it if you were to get closer. And here's this Five of Swords again, talking about fighting the wrong battles. This is really key. This Five of Swords that keeps coming out for us really wants to tell you that there are situations here where it's walls that, okay, usually this comes out with regard to the Nine of Wands, okay? The Nine of Wands in the upright, talking about walls that no longer need to be guarded, or that you recognize that don't need to be guarded, maybe never did. When you see it in the reverse, sometimes it's feeling like, hey, I see that this no longer needs to be guarded. I get the sense here that a new perspective is needed that's going to give you that kind of revelation. You'll see that there is certain anxiety that you don't need to engage in. You've already got a great start over here with this Nine of Swords. That's a much more global Nine of Swords, though. That's like you overall being just way cooler about things, both of you, collective you. So that is great news, because that's going to help clear the way for some things to allow for some clarity. And even though maybe the energy around you otherwise moves very quickly and does not give you a lot of opportunity for clarity. So let's get in and get the sense of how your person is feeling this, and it's how they're feeling about this situation. The question was, are they feeling it as much as you are? Let's get a feel for how much they are feeling it, because there's a triumphant sort of energy that wants to emerge here. And we've got the Spirit of Wands. Here's that magnetism. So there is a lot of magnetism, and I don't think any of us could deny that. Anyone who is in or near this collective would have a hard time denying the magnetism that they're feeling for you. It is obviously well matched with the fear that they're feeling, but they feel like they are already on the precipice of something. This is having set something into motion, and it's difficult to turn back now. There's a strong sense of being on the precipice of something, and we know that their energy is incredibly close to you. We also know that there's been a lot of super intense energy feelings as a result of it, and that you can kind of feel each other there. It's not always a simple thing to feel or to know how to navigate, though. And sometimes, you know, the reason I did the reading yesterday the way I did, somebody was talking about it being so thick they just couldn't breathe. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because I woke up and as I was going through meditations and going through different parts of the day in my meditations, that at that part I got to a feeling that very closely matched what happened there in the email. So there's a great feeling of strength here. And I told you today's energy feels pretty victorious. There's a nice feeling of strength here with regard to their ability to have their eyes open, but they also feel a lot of a need to stick to a script and make sure that they look a certain way. There's a certain arrogance attached to the King of Wands here, a certain amount of control, serious control, a need for control, not just a desire for it, but an incredible need for it. And a feeling that even though things really, you're getting this situation where you have the opportunity to kind of be able to slow things down yourself, the energy still never really slows down around the two of you sufficiently for you to truly get a bead on what is happening. And so this Six of Swords here in the reverse talks about kind of having to, and we saw this in yesterday's reading, or maybe it was the extended, but kind of having to navigate all of this really difficult emotion without it ever really slowing down completely. And yet there are these lights that you have to go towards. So there is this sense of, and your person has these too, there's this sense of something that is like a new hobby, not a new person. So this is not to be confused with this new soulmate that is coming in your direction. You both have something that is going to help set your soul on fire and constitutes a happy new beginning that helps to generate some Four of Wands security and stability for you, okay? The Four of Wands can be a marriage card. It can be a soulmate card. Here, though, I get the sense of more of an inner knowing card. It's a comfort within that has to do with the energies of the two of you coming together. And this new hobby is not about you, like on their part, it's not about you, but they associate it with you. And, I've used the one where I was encouraging you to go into something new. And I've used the example of you using writing to soothe yourself and maybe writing a book as the thing that you use to help redirect some of your energy. So you do associate it with them too. But that's that opportunity that's there for you. It's there for both of you, and it really just feels like this is now the time. It's a time for change. We've definitely seen that, but we've also seen that there's this increasing amount of self-trust. The self-trust, and we see this with the confidence over here with the Seven of Wands as well, but we've seen the Seven of Swords, Seven of Air, Seven of Wind come up a couple of times in the reverse, and it talks about this self-trust that even though we see all of these other things kind of going on, there's a good solid undercurrent, a good solid foundation, even though things never quite slow down. So the Six of Swords in reverse, Seven of Swords in reverse, sort of work together to, because of the people that you are, it's going to be okay. But your person is not as far along on this as you are. So when we look at it and ask the question of if they're feeling as much as you are, like, yes, but it comes across very differently because they're in such a different place on this continuum of learning. There is definitely that sense of change, something coming, but they've still got this feeling of resistance, not feeling like they're ready for it, still feel like it is quite inevitable, and don't feel well connected enough to be able to get to the bottom of what's happening. So there's some frustration I feel in here, and I was feeling it yesterday too, particularly as we were getting into, I think in the extended, I broke things up in the extended, I did them a little bit differently, and I pulled out a new deck, and I did one for you and one for your person, and we looked at the same question for each of you. And it was interesting because it wasn't necessarily that things were so different, but it was just like this. You're seeing them from such a different perspective, because you're in different places. You've gone through, in some cases, a dark night of the soul. You have gone through, and it sounds super dramatic, but if you've experienced it, you go look that up, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. It is a particularly challenging, long, difficult learning experience that is brought on by a trigger, like this one. And your person has not done as much of that healing as you have, and yet they're feeling that inevitability. They're feeling that lack of connection with their higher self and with their intuition. They know there's a problem, but they are significantly less inclined to go after it than you are. So here, though, it's partially because their defense mechanisms involve them cutting things out, also involves them just cutting and running. So when they feel that they're not ready for something, which with the Empress here in reverse, they're feeling like they're not ready, they're not worthy, they're not ready, they don't want to go forward. There's a lot of fear there. There's also this Knight of Wands, which gives you that in and out. So if you have a person who came to you and spoke to you very briefly and then dipped right back out again, this is that energy, that Knight of Wands in reverse, that I can't really be committal. It's a difficult energy for them to be in because they're constantly being drawn back to you, which we already can see that. But so it's just inconsistent, and so it really kind of causes their behavior to look extra difficult to read. So yes, this is a person who is feeling as strongly, but they are doing everything they can um, to not have to deal with it, and to they realize that they're on the precipice of something. And right now, with this sort of victorious energy, we see the edges of it peeking out, but I still don't get a sense of them being ready to move. They seem fairly ensconced in this trench, just kind of trying to build themselves up and wait for everything to go away. I get this strong sense of waiting for things to go away. We're going to look more into that in the extended, because this digs deeply into more what your person truly wants about this situation, because we've seen that be very much in at odds. We've seen that sometimes what comes out is they want something that sounds ridiculous, and then we get into the extended and all of a sudden it makes more sense. We're going to try and get to that next level and see if we can make a a little bit more sense about it. But really what we want to understand is, so we came in and we asked the question about if they're feeling this as much as you are. And the answer is yes, but they're feeling it so differently. Let's get a deeper dive on how they're feeling about it, and then what they would want to happen. I feel like that needs to be the next question that we ask when we get there. So first we're going to do the portion about you. We'll do the portion about the lessons, and let's see where you can be focusing for your own good, for your own happiness, given what's come out here in the rest of the reading. Okay, looks like we've got a couple of cards. We've got the Wayfarer and the Sun. Okay, so there is a feeling of having gone out in search of some solutions, but not necessarily having found them, and having a sense of wasted time and a feeling of needing to recover wasted time. So I get a strong sense that this is a perception, and the answer that wants to come out most right away is perspective. You need that new perspective so that you understand how much this was not at all wasted time. But understand at this point that's where you're coming from, that there's been a lot of wasted time while you tried to work through this. There's still some things, we see this Ten of Wands here in reverse, but there are still some things that you're holding on to that you're going to need to let go. It's too much of a burden. It's too much for you to drag around, and it's an entire, like, you think that you've maybe pulled little itty bitty things out of each of these packs to make them smaller. But it turns out it's going to be like a different enough change that you're going to be able to drop an entire one of these packs in order to lighten the load for yourself a little bit there. But it's not something that happens easily. It's almost like the pack gets torn off and you realize that you can get by without it and you don't really need it. You do need to go on the quest to figure out what it is that is most important to you and that's going to make you happy. It's something that changes over time. We keep seeing that. We keep seeing that really what you want to do is get good at looking. Get good at understanding what it is that you really want and keeping your finger on the pulse of what is going to constitute your wish fulfillment. You have somebody coming your direction that's going to provide insights to you. I'm not sure if it's that soulmate. Kind of feels like it is. We've been seeing this soulmate that's coming in that maybe looks a little different or seems a little different from somebody that you might ordinarily visualize, and you'll feel it. You'll feel that same soul quickening, but you will be like, what is this? You know, it might seem, there might be a big difference between the two of you that you don't know how you would overcome, but you feel very drawn to the lessons that they have to teach you. And it might simply be they are an instructor and you love going to their class. It doesn't have to be something romantic, but it gives a little bit of a sense of a romantic air to it. And actually that romantic air is part of what will take the lesson a little bit longer for some of you. So there will be a perspective that's harder for you to gain because you are too maybe heavily leveraged in the emotions around romanticism. So you want to focus on being able to see this Hierophant in maybe it is a romantic relationship, but also in a platonic sort of way, just to give them the true respect that they're earning. But this is something that you're going to see a lot of happiness in this. You're going to recover a lot of happiness in this. And it's going to be something that helps to build you up so that when you do make your next run at having a reconciliation within yourself, and this judgment that's happening over here, the things that are showing up on that list, it's a shorter list that you now have to work through. Very different list than you would have had at the beginning of this situation. Use the guidance from this Hierophant person, character, source, and allow the sun to come in, because you stand to have an immense amount of fun with this. And this is... remember we talked about this Tower, this significant change coming. And the thing is, it's almost like, and this is not usually true, but the Tower card and the Death card, excuse me, almost have been coming in interchangeably to talk about this change. So it's a significant change, brings a lot of emotional upheaval, but not necessarily in a bad way. And the thing about it that's a Death card is that something else has to be kind of swept out of the way in order for that to work. So we've got the Seven of Cups here and the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, sorry about that. I ended up having to cough. I don't know what happened or what has bloomed near me or what, but it feels like something is going on. So, we had the Seven of Cups come out, which is around choices that you have to make. And it's going to seem like the choice is super obvious, but not, it isn't. Okay. There is definitely you want to give some consideration to everything that's out in front of you, but don't be afraid to do something that is a little bit unorthodox, that looks a little bit different than maybe what has happened in the past. There's definitely always going to be that unknown factor, but it's not necessarily going to be a bad thing. There's certainly some element of risk that needs to come into this as you're working through a risk that you have historically felt a little bit unlikely to take. And by historically, I mean very recently. Excuse me, recently historically, like what we saw here with this Ace of Cups, where there was maybe a tendency for you to hold back love in a way that you typically don't, but it's a result, a direct result of this experience with your person. So we have this Wheel of Fortune that has come out here. And along with this tower, I see it transporting you into a whole new place. A whole new place where you get to make some different types of decisions about what you want, how you want it. We are definitely digging into this when we get into the extended. I want to see a little bit more about you, because I see it like you're definitely moving in this better direction. You know, the ones who are seeing all these signs and then emailing me to say, hey, what do all these signs mean? Like, you know what? It all has to be taken into context. It's not something that's a simple decision or a simple thing to make. There's a lot of confusion here, a lot of confusion in the energy. Some of it's coming from your person, and some of it's coming from you. And so part of it is what need to just kind of quell your energy and be able to understand what is truly important to you. Then those signs might start to make a little bit more sense to you, or you might start to realize, hold on, they really do require a little bit of context in order to understand maybe what they're trying to get across. I feel like there's another card that wants to come out for you here. It's like the Justice card. Yep, we have the Justice card. This is your movement toward balance, and that is a very happy card for us to end on. So it's not, again, not a comfortable path. You're still going to feel like you have some questions, you have some doubts about things. You continue along this path, and there's going to be very positive. There's going to be a lot of positivity, frankly, along the way. A lot of happiness along the way. You've just had a very difficult time, a lot of you. And in some cases, it's kind of been this up and down sort of time where you can remember some of the most amazing things with regard to your person, and then you can also remember some of the most difficult times also. And so this is a little bit more pleasant just overall. As far as what you're focusing on, though, is getting into the now. This is going to be a lot more of a now that is easy to manage, but be prepared for that, some of that burden to fall off, and for you to discover it's really okay. You've got a new perspective to gather here, and you also have somebody that's going to help to show you the way, but again, may not seem like your average person that you go to for guidance, so you never know. And for some cases, it's you consulting tarot readings might be a little bit unorthodox for you. I'm going to go ahead and say it's a little unorthodox for me to be giving them, given what you might find about the rest of my life. But when you take a step back, it all does make a lot more sense. Anyway, I'm going to go into the extended. We're going to take a closer look at how they're feeling about this. And, you know, we noticed, yes, they're feeling this as much as you are, but it takes a very different shape because of the place that they're in. So we'll take a closer look at that. And then, of course, we'll take a closer look at you as well. I look forward to seeing you there. If you want, the link is down below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next reading.